What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Get a Bucket podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host, my guy, Kev. Kev, what's going on, brother?
Man, it ain't looking too hot for my Spartans right now, but I'm still cool, calm, and collected. I ain't stressing nothing yet. We'll talk about it. We'll get into it, but glad to be back. Glad that college basketball is back, and we've had some great games so far. And man, just glad to be back on Get a Bucket, man.
Get a bucket bad. Yes. Sparty not looking so hot right now, but we'll get into that, on what's going on down there because we got we got some to talk about with Sparty and all that. But said Get a Bucket podcast back and all that. Make sure if you want to go back and archives, check out our season preview, conference previews and all that. See if everything holds up, and all that. That'll be fun to go look back at that, at the end of the season and all that. But in some news, we'll start off with some recruiting news. We got some guys committed today. Big time 5-star prospect Trey Johnson is going to Texas. He's consensus 5-star throughout every major recruiting site. So he's going to Texas. Victorious Miller, 4-star, will be heading to Oregon to play basketball. Big time prospect. Ellis, it feels like we've seen him so much or all that. He'll be heading to South Carolina. You've seen him OTE and all that. So he's taking his talents down to South Carolina. Jakari Harris, 4-star, going to Purdue. Purdue gets a good one out there. Anything that stands out to you there, you Kev, with these some of these recruits?
Man, all these names, to be honest. Victorious Miller, I've been a big fan of his. His pops is Silk the Shocker. Of course, his uncle is Master P. He's part of that, royal family. I guess he's going to call it that.
That's high school for me, bro.
That's his pops right there. So I've been a big fan of his game. He's down there at AZ Compass in Arizona, which is, of course, a big time college basketball program. And to me, he just gets the job done, if I'm being honest. And going to Oregon, Dana Altman's kind of struck out on a few recruits the past few years. I think going into the Big Ten, Victorious Miller could be a hell of a player. Eli Ellis, another guy that he's been a major player on the Adidas circuit, playing for Overtime Elite, going to Moravian Prep, which is a big-time program out there in North Carolina. That's a huge pickup for Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks. They needed a new source of life energy. Of course, they're kind of like a bottom-tier SEC team, and I think getting a guard like that will help them out a lot. And then Trey Johnson, a lot of people believe he's the best player in the class of 2024. And when you look at him, to be honest, I thought he was a Baylor lean for a good majority of his recruitment because he has ties to Baylor. I believe his pops played for Scott Drew. I could be mistaken on that, but something like that. And I thought they were going to get him. And he ends up going to Texas. He'll be with Rodney Terry. And that's a hell of a program, too. He's a big-time shot maker. Not the greatest at creation when it just comes to off the dribble, but when it comes to just putting the ball through the hoop, there's not too many players better than Trey Johnson at doing that. And then Jakari Harris, he's down there in Atlanta at Grayson, which is another big-time high school basketball program down there in the A. He's perfect fit at Purdue, right? They need some more dynamic guards that can break defenses down off the dribble, get to his spots, facilitate, play, make other guys better. So all these commitments to me, I think, are all going to be important recruits for the next few years going into college basketball.
Yeah. Purdue got a nice little class next year. It seems like it's a little bit different from when they've usually recruited and all that. So they got that kid from OTE. So Purdue, maybe they got to figure out they got to change a little bit. They got to change a little bit of the style they recruit and all that. Get some actual, some athletes, some actual dogs and all that. So exactly. Got to change things up. Can't keep getting bounced in the first round and all, or for the first weekend and all that. So some good pickups. So those are the latest recruits that are committed today in college basketball and all that. All right, Kev. Let's talk about the game. Duke, Michigan State. Both teams coming off a L. You guys lost, opening night, at the crib. We lost to Arizona and all that. So the hype it was still hype, but it was kind of weird. Like, one of these teams are going to be 1-2, so and all that. Fortunately, my team, got the dub and all that. But for Michigan State, obviously 1-2. And then I'm not panicking. Like I said, it early, and we talked about this before the show started. It's early and all that, and it's not like the NBA got preseason and all that. I mean, they got these weird little scrimmages and all that, but other than that, there's not a lot of live action, before the season starts and all that. But Kev, we got to talk about some of these numbers, bro.
We got to.
Through 3 games. All right, the first game, 1 of 20. All right, that happens. Not like that, but it happens. 1 of 11, and then 6 of 19. So you guys are shooting 8 or 50 from 3 points. So far, it's early. So at least 16%, like 362 schools in college basketball to play Division I basketball. You are ranked 352nd in 3-point shooting, Kev. What's going on with the shooting from the perimeter right now with Sparty?
Man, I'll first start off by saying that the loss of Joey Hauser is glaring just because he did a little bit of everything.
They said it on the broadcast too against Duke. They were like, yeah, Joey Hauser. We didn't realize how big of a impact that loss was, but it's big.
And I had a feeling it will be too, just because I've always said after the point guard spot, I think that 4 spot is the most important position in the game. And when you lose a stretch 4 like that, in transition opportunities, he can be that trail shooter that just knocks down shots. He spaces the floor. He gives everybody more room to operate with. Defenses have to play him honestly. But to me, honestly, it's bad right now, as you just mentioned. We're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country. In my opinion, we're probably the worst as being a Michigan State fan and watching it. But a lot of the shots that we've been missing are shots that guys just have to continue to take and shoot confidently. They've been good looks for the most part. It's not like we're forcing bad shots. It's just the shots 100%. Are there and we're not hitting. And that's got to change. I think it will change. And again, with the loss of Joey Hauser, it's pretty much a whole new team because Joey was pretty much our second option last year after Tyson Walker. And when you lose a guy like that, somebody has to step up. And in my mind, it's AJ Hogarth, but it's also Jaden Akins too, because AJ is the straw that stirs the drink. He's the most important player on this team because he has the capability of making everybody better outside of Tyson Walker, because Tyson Walker is just Tyson Walker. But when AJ is playing at a high level, it's contagious for the rest of the team. He has that true point guard aura where when his confidence is on point, it just raises the spirit and the level of the entire team. And when his energy isn't right, like we saw in the Duke game, everybody's just kind of out there, and it looks like Tyson Walker is just playing 1-on-5. And I'm not too worried. A lot of Michigan State fans are panicking. Yes, do we have issues? Of course. But as I told you before we started, I'd rather deal with these issues now than later because you just want to get these out the way. Like even the top teams right now, they're going to run into issues just like every team. UConn last year had a large stretch during Big East place where they struggled. It happens.
Talked about it all the time again with UConn.
Exactly. And again, I'm not even going to compare us to UConn because I know that UConn team would blow us out. Don't get it twisted whatsoever. But I'm just saying it's good to have these learning lessons. It's good to understand that, hey, we went into the season as a top 4 ranked team and we didn't really deserve it, right? All we did was bring back some talent, but that same talent hasn't won that many games. They haven't won a Big Ten championship. They haven't won a Big Ten tournament. We got to the Sweet 16 off bad 3-point shooting coincidentally last year, but still, just because we returned a good crop of our guards, I feel like it's a good humbling lesson. And because we're losing like we are, the team has no choice but to listen to Izzo. Otherwise, they're going to fold. And I'm pretty sure they're going to take that first option instead of that second one. And that's why I'm still confident because, again, these issues are fixable. It's just about you got to get your point guard on track. You got to figure out some more spacing. You got to get your best players in the position to succeed. And lastly, as much as I hate to single out one player, Mady Sissoko just can't be our starting center. Like, we haven't seen any true growth or development in his game. When he catches the ball in the low post, he doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't have a go-to post move. He's just a solid big man that you can throw lobs to here and there. He sets good screens, but he's not an offensive weapon. And defensively, it's a concern too, just because when you play 3 guards, you're kind of undersized doing that to yourself, and you don't want to have a small center. He's 6'9", but I'd rather have Carson Cooper back there because Carson Cooper is a legit 7-footer, and you actually have some rim protection with him. So I'm not worried. I love it personally because we're getting tested trial by fire because we still have to play Arizona in a week, Thanksgiving Day, and then we got to play Baylor too before Big Ten play even starts. So me personally, it's just like, as I told you, we literally can't get any worse than what we're doing right now. We can't. It's no possible way. We're playing our worst basketball right now.
Yeah, and you rather play your worst basketball right in the beginning of the season, then play your worst basketball when you're leading up to March or in March, and the season's over just like that. So, you know, I think these things, because it's like you said, a lot of the shots they're taking, and especially in the Duke game, you saw it wasn't a lot of bad shots and all that. It was just it's not going in right now,
Yep.
And you guys have too much veteran leadership, too many guys who played intense big time games for this to be something that we should really be worried about. So I think it's just some early season, just trying to figure things out. I don't expect AJ Holgart to shoot 19%.
And only average 5 points at
And only
that.
average like 4.7 points per game. I don't expect that to be the case. Right now he's just a little bit of the funk and all that, just getting his head and all that. But I don't expect that to be the case, to him shoot 19%. He's a way better player than that. He's someone that we thought could potentially be an All-American this year. He's a way better player than that. But thank God for Tyson Walker, because he's a hooper.
Man.
He's a hooper. And like I mentioned before, you would think he probably shooting like 35%. He's shooting 50% from the field and all that. And he just, I told you, he's looking like a pro. He's looking like a pro. Like there's things he's doing that you're like, oh, that's next level stuff. That's not just, college basketball point guard good. No, that's next level stuff. And it could be a lot worse, and he's keeping you, it could be over 3 maybe,
Afloat.
But, he's keeping you guys afloat and all that. But Duke coming off the loss versus Arizona at home, struggled from the perimeter against Arizona, struggled to contest shots at the rim. Caleb Love came into Cameron and does what Caleb Love does and did his thing and all that. He shut down the crowd and all that. And, I remember talking to you about it. I was like, Caleb, I'm worried about this Arizona game because of him. He's a big reason why and all that. And they were able to take care of Duke, Shire's first home loss at Duke since, obviously only been there 1 year, but that was his first L at the crib. And of course, Coach K was there and all that. He was looking tight and all that, but they bounced back big. They bounced back big in this game. Still, Proctor's still trying to get his game going and all that. He struggled in the beginning of the season last year and all that. So we figure it out, McCain and all that. Shire, it seems like he adjusts. He figures out his adjustments quick. Like, doesn't play some guys. And then, he flips that around real quick and sticks with his guys that are going to be able to that he knows they're going to start hooping and all that. So he figured that out. Caleb Foster absolutely balled out. I forgot I don't know how many minutes he played against Zona. It probably, I don't think not if any, barely, but he rolled with him off the bench and he had 18 points against you guys and all that. With McCain and Roach not having the games and Proctor, I think they shot they made 6 shots, combined those 3 and all that. So he figured it out and all that. But what did you see from Duke on from this game that improvements from this game from the Arizona loss?
Yeah, to me, pretty much what I expected, if I'm being honest, right? The guard play is there. You're definitely going to need consistent production out of Caleb Foster and Jared McCain. It's probably going to be either or as the season goes through. But to me, it's more than likely going to end up being Caleb Foster, not just based off of last night, but to me, just because his size, he's 6'5". He's a pretty good playmaker. He took some questionable shots last night, but I think that was just in the moment heat check shots. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't really blame him for that. And he's a freshman, so he'll make mistakes like that. But all in all, to me, what I've seen so far is that the team goes as far as Jeremy Roach and Kyle Filipowski decides to take him, right? Defensively, I have some concerns about rim protection, but I think you guys have so much firepower offensively that you can kind of even that out for the most part. But I think that would be a concern in case you run into a team like a Miami that could get to the paint a lot. But I like this Duke team, with the guard play. It's weird because it's a lot of guards, but I feel like it's still not a true point guard, right? Like it's not a real
They're all
floor
combo.
general.
Yeah, they're all combo.
And that's that's the most surprising thing I didn't expect because I trust, Jeremy Roach is, he's a scorer first, but I feel like he can facilitate. Caleb Foster could turn into I think he, out of all of them, is the most pure point guard, maybe Tyrese Proctor, but I'm just from a scoring and playmaking aspect, I think it's going to end up being Caleb Foster because Tyrese can assist, but I'm still kind of concerned about his scoring package a little bit. But outside of that, I mean, you have the guard. Your guard play alone is going to keep you in most games. Kyle Filipowski is one of the bigger walking mismatches in the country. Duke is going to compete just off their talent alone. How they put it all together, we'll see. You know, you're going to need Mark Mitchell, to be that X factor key glue guy. But I like this Duke team for the most part. They're pretty much as good as advertised as of right now, and they still have a ton of room to get better too, which is kind of scary.
I think we're going to see some lineups where they're going to play 4 guards at a time and flip at the 5. I think that might be some of their better because, like we just mentioned, there's not a real floor general, but all those guys could get a bucket, no pun intended, get a bucket. Yep. You know, and Mark Mitchell is not offensively, you know, there. You know, he's offensively challenged. You know, and you know, there's just not a lot of there's no wing. It's weird. We don't really have a wing like that. You know, Sean Stewart, we're still trying to figure him out. He's been off to a slow start and all that. So it's right now they might have go 4 guard heavy like the old Villanova days where they were just playing, you know, 3, 4, 5 guards. It feels like at a time. It might have to be that way, you know, because it's hard to, you know, because it's going to be interchangeable every week. You know, you might have Caleb goes off. You know, McCain had a good game against, you know, good game against Zona, but it's like, you know, you might have to just, hey, let's throw them all out there and just figure it out and have Roach just, you know, be like essentially the floor general to get everyone. But you might have to do that and just be creative because, you know, you're not going to get the production from the wings and all that, you know, have that wing score. So, and then because you're going to need somebody else other than because with Proctor struggling right now, and I expect Proctor to bounce back and be that second scorer that we need, but we can't just rely on Flip to just you know be the main guy and all that because everybody knows that's going to be the case, you know, and they're going to double team him and you need someone else that's reliable. So that's could be my one concern. And like I said, the rim protection is non-existent, especially with it flips in foul trouble. It's
bad.
It's bad. You got that boy Ryan Young out there, the traffic cone. That he don't block no shots. He don't get no steals.
Just let this be a lesson that ACC teams need to stay away from Big Ten transfers. North Carolina with Pete Nance last year, and this year with y'all and Ryan Young. Just leave them Big Ten players alone, man.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. I know they got a whole with Reeves. He's not ready. He's not ready. I mean, no, he played some minutes. He had to play minutes against Zona because Flip got in foul trouble and all that. But he's not ready there yet. So they're gonna need Flip to dominate most games and all that, and hopefully Proctor bounces back to get something from McCain, you know, and Foster and one of these young guys. You know, hopefully Stewart starts coming on, but he's only playing a few minutes. So, but I expect him to get some more minutes because you know we need some wing, you know. So eventually, I mean, he's 6'10". We're gonna need something from him. You know, you might have to just throw him out there and just let it be. You know, because eventually we're gonna need him. You know, but good win though. It was a good win, good bounce back win after the tough loss at home and all that. So, you know, wasn't perfect and all that, but luckily you guys can't shoot threes, so you know that helped out a lot. Luckily you guys can't shoot because we might have a different story right now.
It makes defense a lot easier when you can't shoot.
Exactly. But hopefully Duke figures out that Proctor gets back on board and all that and figures it out and all that. But there was another game that followed this game. It was Kansas versus Kentucky, and obviously Kansas wound up getting the win and all that. Hunter Dickinson had 27 and 21, something like that.
Yeah,
he dominated. But obviously Kentucky, they had none of their bigs and all that, so they were able to dominate. McCullough had a triple double and all that. But there's a lot of hype around Kentucky and people feeling good about Kentucky, and which is crazy because you lose. There's usually not that much, people are down and all that. And I'm sure Kentucky fans are they want DeJuan Wagner. They wish he went to Louisville at this point. They already they down bad on my guy. It's like I said, it's early. You guys are, but no. But Dillingham had a good game and all that. You know, so what do we take out of this game? Do we look at Kansas and like maybe they're a little bit overrated, and maybe Kentucky is better than we thought, even though they lost and Kansas win. It kind of have a general feeling. Just listen to a bunch of podcasts and all that like everybody feels the same way, that like they felt better about Kentucky because of they don't have Bradshaw and a bunch of other guys not playing than Kansas, who has all their guys. And it seems like there's some things that could hurt them potentially in March. So how are we feeling about Kansas and Kentucky right now?
I think it's both. I think Kansas is overrated, and I think Kentucky was underrated. And I'll start with Kansas, then I'll work my way back to Kentucky. But with Kansas, it's kind of what everybody expected going into the season. Even though they brought in the talent, obviously they had the whole Arterio Morris thing. Good riddance with that. But they have no spacing. Shooting wise, they just have no spacing. They thought Nick Timberlake was going to be a big time player for them from Towson. He barely even played in this game. It looked like he was just, the moment was way too big for him in this game. He might not get, he should get more comfortable as the season progresses, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that most people thought he would be, entering the transfer portal. But to me, as we've seen in this game last night, you need DeJuan Harris to be that legit scoring threat. He has to be a legit scorer this year, because you just don't have enough offensive prowess until a Marco Jackson starts to get it right around him, where he just can't be a threat. Like, yeah, he can still be the supreme playmaker and defender that he is, but he doesn't even have to drop 5 threes a game. I'm not saying that, but he just has to be a legit scoring threat. You have to make defenses play you honestly, because if Kevin McCullough is your second offensive option, it's not a knock on him. But when you look at when he's at his best, he's more of like that essential glue guy, that pivotal player that just go out, guard the other team's best player, does all the dirty work, will get 10 rebounds out of nowhere, things like that. So
yeah,
to me, they
he doesn't be taking 12 shots like he did yesterday. He only made 3 shots. So like that's not his game. Even though he does everything else really well, and I think he is a future pro and all that, but you don't need him taking 12 shots. That's not how you're gonna win a championship.
Exactly. So to me, this team is going to really hinge on how fast can Marco Jackson turn into a legit D1 basketball player. And I know he will be eventually. I don't know when it's going to take place. It could be next year. It could be the end of this year, whatever. Hopefully for their sake it's this year. But Marco, to me, I have a lot of faith in, and that's going to be the guy that Kansas truthfully needs to get better as the season progresses. And then on the flip side with Kentucky, to me, man, the talent is evident, right? They have so much talent. It's actually funny. It's going to be interesting. My biggest concern with them, before I talk about the pros, is that as the season progresses, I'm going to be very curious to see how Cal decides to close games. Like, I don't know what 5 is going to be, and that's kind of the concern with them, is that they have so much depth. It's like somebody's not going to play, and somebody's not going to be happy. And, that's kind of what it is at Kentucky and Duke, right? It's just the nature of the beast. But
Dillingham played 16 minutes. He got 18 points in just 16 minutes and all. And there was some moments where Cal took him out when he had the heater.
Exactly.
Cal took him out and all that. So it's like it's back to Cal. What's going on with the guards? Like how come it's always some weird things going on with your guard situation?
And Reed Shepherd looks like the most stable college ready out of all of them. And I don't think too many people expected that, unless you're from the state of Kentucky and you watched him, coming out the state. But to me, I don't think DJ Wagner is going to be as bad as he was. He just has to really truthfully find his game. He struggled this game. Justin Edwards couldn't really get it going either. If they play a little bit better, they more than likely.
That was more shocking than DJ, to be honest.
Yeah. His game has to be predicated on just 1 to 2 to 3 dribbles max. If you can't make a play or get a bucket by then, give it up, right? He's not the type of guy that's going to cross you over and make the fancy plays. No, he's a simple 1-2 dribble pull up, get to my spot. If I get 1 dribble from the 3-point line to the rim, that's my game. He doesn't need to be doing anything outside of that. He has a mid-range game too, so I'm not too worried about him. But it's just like with all freshmen, they got to figure out their footing. They got to figure out their spots. The college basketball game is a completely different game. We've said this how many different times. So I'm not worried
Mm-hmm.
about them because the talent is like it's evident. Adu Thiero is going to be a dude for them, right? Trey
Yeah, he's
Mitchell
good.
was a pretty good pickup for them coming over from West Virginia. So they have a ton of talent. Honestly, I think out of all the teams in the SEC, they probably have the highest upside just because of the talent. But again, it's all going to fall on Cal when games are tight like they were last night. Who's going to be the five that you put in the game and you feel like you can trust the most? And of course, as you mentioned, they didn't have Aaron Bradshaw, they didn't have Ugana Kingsley, and they didn't have Zvonimir Ivicic, who they're waiting to get clear from the NCAA. So as they start to incorporate those bigs and as those bigs start to get healthy, this Kentucky team is going to be dangerous, man.
Once they get those bigs, they'll be all right. I'm like I said, and I think that's why myself and a lot of people, yourself, like we feel good about Kentucky going forward because those bigs come back. I think it'll help a lot. It'll make for easy passes and just the little lobs and all that. It's gonna make the guard situation so much easier and all that. It's gonna open up some things. So I think they're gonna be all right. Like you said with Kansas and all that. It's obviously Hunter Dickinson's gonna be a monster, and all that, but who's gonna be that second guy? Who's going to who's going to help him out and all that and get that perimeter score and all that because McCullough is, I think you see he's a glue guy and all that, but can't be taking 12 shots and all that. We got to but they took advantage because Hunter Dickinson had 21 rebounds and all that, so he did what he did his job.
Yep.
He did, and now it's and tremendous. He's one of the best impact transfers that's going to be. He might be the player of the year and all that if Zach Edey doesn't continue to dominate. So they brought him in for that reason, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do. So they took care of business, and but Kentucky's going to be a team that they're going to be all right. I think they'll be all right and all that. We talked about this before and all that because it seems like there's a few teams off to little not bad starts and all, but we've seen some early ups. Obviously, you've seen your team upset and all that. USC lost to UC Irvine and all that. Some teams losing to teams they probably shouldn't be losing to. Let's keep it real and all that. Well, what do you think is the solution for college basketball for that? Because it's obviously we always see schools, big time schools, and they're going to play low Division I teams and all that, but there's not really a preseason per se in college basketball. But how do we avoid some of these, tough starts for a lot of these teams? Is there a solution, that can be fixed? What do you think should happen?
I think the one and only thing you could really do is have them exhibition games more and scrimmage more. Have a summer league like John Calipari's been trying to propose to the NCAA for a few years now, right? Where you can just get some more in-game rest because when you're looking at these mid-majors and low majors, a lot of these guys are dudes that fell off from the high major ranks and they have a point to prove, right? They're hungry to show that, hey, we can still compete with anybody. We were here at this level not too long ago, right? We were built for this, right? I looked at James Madison. Their average age of their team was 24 and a half years old, right? And I'm not making an excuse because the two of our better players in Malik Hall and Tyson Walker, they're on their COVID year right now, right? Tyson is technically kind of like the anomaly just because he was a transfer and usually transfers sit out a year. So technically this would be his second year in the program, but because he didn't, it's his third. But still, it's just teams, they got to play more. That's the only real solution because you just have to get them in-game reps, and there's nothing like in-game reps. You got to think all summer long, practice sounds amazing, but when you're consistently and constantly playing against your own teammates, it gets tiring, right? Because you're not going to bring the same effort. You're not going to go all out. It's not game speed. As much as coaches want to try and emulate game speed, it's just not. A lot of guys are great practice players, but when them actual lights come on, they're non-existent, and vice versa. A lot of guys struggle in practice, but when them lights come on, they're right there when you need them the most. So to me, it's all about just playing more games. And you got to understand too that when you're playing these when you're playing these low major and mid major teams, they're trying to prove a point. They have these games marked on their calendars because they want to go in and make a statement like James Madison has done. And so you just got to give them credit. But to me, it's as simple as we just got to get more games in throughout the summertime and before the season starts officially.
No, I agree with you because it seems like there's a lot of lot of figuring out, and especially we talk about college sports as you got transfers coming in, you got obviously freshmen coming in and all that. But it's crazy that we see like we talked about for the show, we got 24, 25, 26-year-olds playing, and the COVID stuff is obviously, I think this is the last year with the COVID players.
There's one
and
more
all
after
that.
this. It's next year.
One more. So we got
Yeah.
one more, and then it's that we get back to some type of normal. We can just go see 23-year-olds admit old, but some of these 26, 20, it's great. Like you just say, you played a team that's average age is 24. Like that's like my max. Like 24, anything older than that. Like we talked about dude from Memphis. Like he's like 30. He just keeps applying for waivers. Is like, and I wonder what it's gonna look like when the COVID year ends and all that. Like, and like, is it gonna be heavy like on the transfer portal like it was, or are we gonna go back to it's gonna be going back to it's about recruiting high school kids and all that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. Yeah, I think we're gonna get the shift back, right, where high majors actually look like high majors, and you kind of get that balance of power back. But I don't know. Recruiting to me, I'm with you. I think it'll change a little bit more getting back to the high school game, just because you want to kind of get younger, but you still want to have vets at the same time. So it's actually a great point. I think it's going to be very interesting to see which coaches take which direction, because it really just depends on the coach, right? Some coaches want to get older. Some coaches are like Cal, they want to stay young. It just depends on your method of madness. Some coaches like Tony Bennett, he just recruits anybody that he can possibly get to go to Virginia. So it just depends on the situation.
You play basketball, you want to come to Virginia, just play zone all day and not score any points. All right, let's go. And all that. But it's going. I'm sure college basketball, whoever runs the NCAA is probably like, all right, can we get back to the freshmen doing that, because that helps ratings, because we can't have no more San Diego States in the national championship. We can't have. It's cool. It sounds good. It sounds
great story.
Good. Great story, but we can't name one player on the team. All we got to talk about is Kawhi Leonard. We bring it back old players. Nobody remembers who's on San Diego State. And it's, I get that aspect. They're probably like, yeah, we need Kentucky's and the Dukes and the Michigan States, and we need the big names. We need the big time names back. UNC, Texas. We need the big names. So it'll be interesting to see if it gets back to the way it was and all that, because it got the transfer portals getting crazy. I mean, transfer is here forever, but some of these older players, it's getting a little crazy. So
I think with that too, a lot of coaches, when they go into the transfer portal, they're gonna value guys that they can get to stay around for a couple years too. Because when you look, a lot of these transfers, they go and they only have 1 year at the new school. I don't think that'll be the case in the next few years. I think it's gonna be guys like, hey, we need you to be around for a few years, like a guy like Tyson Walker, so we can maximize you, develop you, and make you a player.
Yeah, Tyson Walker, he's a hooper. He's a New Yorker too, so. He's from upstate. He plays in upstate New York, and that's a different brand of basketball than from the city, but he plays like he's a city point guard.
He went to Christ the King. He played with Kofi and Jose Alvarado.
Yeah. So, he translated and all that, but that's going to be it for Get a Bucket podcast. We're going to be back this weekend. We're going to talk about the weekend games, coming up and all that. But Kev, another one in the books. Appreciate you, my guy.
Yes, sir. You already know what it is, man. Appreciate y'all as always. Y'all stay tuned. We got some great games coming up. We got some great, non-conference tournaments coming up that I can't wait to watch. Should be real good. Can't wait to talk about on the next episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And make sure to follow us. You can follow me off the ball pod. Kev, what's your handle?
At Kevo Mufasa 7, KEVOOMUFASA 7. On all social media platforms.
Follow on there. Make sure to follow Get a Bucket podcast. Make sure to give 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Go to Spotify. Give us a like and a rating, 5-star rating. Follow us on the YouTube. Give us a sub on the YouTube channel. We're on video also. Whatever you listen to your podcast platforms, please leave us a 5-star rating. Helps out the show a lot. Boost us up in those rankings and all that. But we'll have another show before the weekend to get into these weekend games and all that, and get a more deeper dive into the college basketball slate. But that's it for Get a Bucket podcast. hopefully for Kev, his Spartans bounce back. We'll see how my Dukies do this weekend, but we'll dive into that before the weekend and all that. But that's Kev. I'm Chris. Get It Bucket Podcast. We out.